Arr. Halloween is almost upon us, and this is the time of the year where everything that is spooky and fun and disgusting comes to light. So in today's lesson, I'm going to be teaching you how to create your own cheap and cost-effective fake bones that you can very quickly and easily make. It will take a few days to dry, but you can have them ready in time for Halloween if you start making them now. So I'm going to just set up my table and we'll jump into giving you a lesson on how to create fake bones in a cheap and easy way that'll cost you less than 30 Rand to make a whole bunch of them. So I am back and we are ready to go now. So what you will need is you will need some air-dried clay. This clay I actually made myself. You can purchase air-dried clay if you'd like, but this one I made from a combination of 2 cups of bicarb, a cup of corn flour, and a cup and a quarter of water. You then have to put it into a pot and boil it for about 15 minutes, stirring it continuously. Once it is ready, take it off the heat. You're going to leave it to cool down. Form it into a ball with your spoon or your spatula. Let it cool down so that it's cool enough to be able to touch. And once it's cool enough to touch, put it onto a board where you can put out corn flour, and then you are going to knead it into the corn flour until it loses its tacky feeling. So when it first comes out, it's really sticky and it'll stick to your hands. You get a residue and it doesn't feel great. So you just keep kneading in the corn flour until you get the right consistency. So the next thing after that is that you will need corn flour. Corn flour is both for kneading and for putting onto your hands. You put a little bit onto your hands before you start a project. That'll ensure that your clay does not stick to your hands. Oh, let's get rid of this spider. And we will also need used tea bags. So make yourself a cup of tea, steep it in hot water, and then make sure that your tea bags are soft to the touch and that they do leave color on your fingers. You need some brown or black paint. I prefer to work with black paint, but it's up to you the coloring that you need. You will need a craft knife, but if you don't have a craft knife, that's not a problem at all. You can use a dowel stick or even a toothpick. Anything you have is fine. Remember, as an artist, you can use what you have. You don't have to go out and buy expensive tools. Then you will need a range of different paint brushes. You'll need a super fine one so that you can paint into tiny, tiny little sections, a slightly thicker one, and then just a different range of sizes, a nice soft fluffy one, and then you're going to need a hard bristled brush, which I'll teach you how to use a little bit later. This is some of the bones that I've played with over the last couple of days, and I'm going to move them out of the way and we'll come back to them at a later stage so I can show you how to work with them. One of the things with the air-dry clay is that with this mixture that I made, it is not brilliant for making big pieces. So this bone originally was supposed to all fit together. I've lost some of the pieces. And it landed up cracking, which I enjoyed the cracks. If you have a look at the cracks are absolutely beautiful. And if you paint up the cracks, it looks really stunning. But when you go for a longer piece, they do tend to break. There are a couple of reasons for this. The one is that with homemade air-dry clay, you are not getting a stretch. So the air-dry clays that you buy from the shops have a stretch in them, so they don't break as easily, but also they will feel really light. So compared to this has got a weight to it. You can see there's a bit of a weight, whereas an air-dry clay will almost float. It's very light when it does dry up. And then the other thing is that when you are doing your sculpting, is that when you join a thinner piece to a larger piece, they will dry at a different rate. And so because they dry at a different rate, you find that you can have cracking and breaking. The other reason why your pieces might break is if you try and create a shaft and then add on the head of the bone afterwards and try and join them up. If you do that and you don't join them correctly, you will find that your piece will actually come apart. I have to say, as I was very upset when they first broke apart because I really wanted the long bones, but started to realize that you're getting some beautiful, unique, jagged pieces through the breaks that could actually lead the bones to be looking more authentic in the long run. So I'm not too upset about that, and it's something I can work with. But if you are wanting bones that stick together and it's a full bone, then you are going to have to go to the expense of buying air dry clay. If you do this option, it costs you about 30 Rand. So this is a nice cheap option, and I've actually made a whole lot of bones already from the recipe, and this is what's left over. You can make it a good couple of days beforehand. I made this clay 5 days ago, and each day I've just made a couple of bones and tested them and played with them to see how long it takes for them to dry and how long the clay would survive. The nice thing is that this is 5 days on, still really malleable. The secret is make sure that you put it into a sealed plastic container, squeeze all of the air out and seal it, and that way your clay will last for quite a long time and you'll be able to slowly make pieces as you go along. Okay, so in order to make our first bone, grab a little piece of the clay. I've already got corn flour in my hand, so I don't need to add more, because you find a few days down the line it's not as sticky as it was the first day. So you'll find on the first day that you do have to use your corn flour, otherwise it's sticking to you. Make sure you knead it properly, because you want to knead out all of these joints, because these joints here can crack apart, but it could also look gorgeous within a bone. So it's going to be up to you as to how you do it. So what I do is I roll it into a ball to start off with, and then I slowly start rolling it into a cylinder. But before I get too far, I start squeezing out the ends of the bones. The reason I do that, and I'm going to keep that there, can you see that? Because that'll form very nicely into the bone. The reason I do that is that I want to make sure that I create this in one piece as opposed to two pieces, because, or three pieces, because if I add the heads on, I don't want to take the risk that the heads are going to break off, because I think the bones look more authentic if they've got a bit of a shaft on them. Okay, so let's try and just get the shape right in the middle while squeezing out. And you can roll it on a surface here. If it's your first day of using the clay, make sure you've got a little bit of corn flour on your board. As I said, mine is a couple of days on, and it's actually perfect consistency, and you don't need to have the corn flour to prevent sticking. And keep moving your piece around, and with your fingers, moving this up so that you're creating the ball joints for your bones. Once you're happy with the shaft of your bone, also just be careful that you don't make your shafts too skinny and the heads of your bones huge, because if you do that, they're going to look funny. So what I would suggest is that before you jump into making your bones, is do a little bit of investigation on Google as to what bones actually look like. Because if you want an authentic bone, you need to actually understand the structure and the shape of different bones. So this is actually not a human bone at all. It's more like a dog bone, but it's just what I'm showing you. If you are wanting to do like a human bone, so for the hand, you would actually have to measure the size of all of the bones, but you also need to be aware of where your bones are. So for example, there is a bone here, there's a bone there, there and there. Oh, that one's the wrong one. Let's pick up the right bones sorry, I've got them off screen. I'll just bring some bones over this way. So you would have a bone that fits here. Then the next bone needs to fit into that section. Then you need a bone that fits into that section. And you need a bone that fits onto the top. And what I would suggest is that you make these in individual pieces and glue them together at a later stage, because you can then glue them at different angles to give clutched fingers that are reaching out of graves. Okay, so that's our bone. We want to now put an indentation into the middle of the bone, because remember, the bones connect into each other and they oscillate. So there is always a connection on your bones. Can you see my clay separated there? I'm not fazed by that at all, because that's going to actually give me a beautiful look in the end. So I'm going to actually just work that out and see what happens there. And all you're going to do is you're just going to gently work your way around. Remember that bones are not like completely rounded in shape. They have flat parts. So put little flat parts in. The flat parts will make it more interesting when you put in your coloring. And then just continue shaping down. Use your finger like this and just sort of stroke it. Then you get a beautiful look. Come around the bottom of the shaft. Keep stroking, push in, and you're just going to keep moving it. But now can you see what's happened is that while I've been doing that, I've adjusted the shape of what the bone looks like in the middle. So let's go to the other side. Important is make sure that where this little indentation is, the indentation is in the same place on the other side. Because often what happens is that you're working on it upright and you end up doing your indentation in the wrong place, and then your bone looks completely strange and bizarre. But if you're doing monster bones and you want strange and bizarre, go for it. No issue with trying something that's strange. So flatten the edges here so that we don't have a round bulge. And just gently put your, it's almost like you're squeezing and stroking. You're just gently stroking the bone. And then come underneath here and just gently stroke it down and smoothing it out. Okay, so now I'm not liking that, but you will find that you'll keep sort of playing with it until you get something that is just, you go, okay, that's right. And now we just need to squeeze this bone out. You can actually rotate it a little bit. But you might find that you compromise the sculpture that you have done on the sides. Let's just work that up a little bit. And you can just move some of the clay from that side and then smooth it off. And when you rub like this, you actually get a lovely texture. Okay, so now we have the shape of our bone. You are now going to need to sculpt in interesting little things into your bones. So I like using a craft knife, but you can use, sorry, my table just moved. You can use anything that you have available. With a bone, you will have striations. And you could do these quite thickly into your bones. Don't do it over the head, because you want to keep the head fairly flat. And then just put your striations in. You do it the whole way round, but I'm going to do one side just to show you. Then using my toothpick is that in some places, I'm going to actually just go in, not all over the place, deeper. Because when we put our painting and our highlights into our painting, this is going to show up beautifully. One of the things with air dry clay is that you will have to keep turning it as it dries, because look, just over the last few minutes, this side has flattened. So you're going to put it onto a rack, so like a cake cooling rack that it can dry, but I always put a little bit of wax paper on first with a touch of the corn flour onto it. That way it doesn't stick and it will still breathe through that. So in the first day or so, you're going to have to keep rotating your bone so that you don't get a flat side. If you don't mind having one side that's flat and you only want the 3D effect on one side, then leave it alone. It'll dry perfectly. The one thing with moving it round and round, you've just got to be super gentle with it because you don't want to compromise it, because shaking it around too much can lead to things breaking. Now, just from a point of view of breakage, it is more than likely going to break here, because this is so much thinner than here and here. This will dry first here, and that will lead to it breaking off. But I'm not faced with that because I quite like the broken pieces, and with what I'm going to do for Halloween, it's going to work really well. Okay, so that's that type of bone. Let's just do a little finger joint to show you a finger joint. So now I'm going to just do that one for example. This would be too much, so let's just separate it out. And you're going to roll it to start off with. And then these joints are flat on either side. So I want you to just press in and indent this, and you're almost going to squeeze. Can you see how I'm squeezing there? Where you are going to pull that up, and with doing that, it's going to change the shape there, and then you're just going to pull up on this side. Try not to pull too much, otherwise you're going to stretch out more than you need to. Have a look there. That will make a beautiful dark area, which will bring the bone to life a little bit more. Now I've possibly gone a little bit big here, so I'm going to squish it back in. Let's check the sizing. Then you can actually just with your dowel stick is bring areas where the bone could actually connect. And I don't have a picture of the bone in front of me, so I'm not being precise, so I apologize. And this is the first time I'm doing a video where I can't see what I'm videoing, so I really hope that everything is actually in the screen and you are able to see and hear me clearly. Okay, so those are our two bones. Now, you can paint the bones straight away, or you can wait until this bone I did yesterday, and it's actually already nice and dry. So a bigger bone is going to take you about 5 days, so this bone took about 5 days to dry. The little fingers, joints will probably take a day. This took a day. It also depends on if you've got a hot day, they're going to dry faster. If it's overcast and miserable and humid, it's going to affect the drying rate. So just be aware that you're just going to have to play with drying times and touch it. If it feels hard, lift it up. If it's not flexible, then you know it's already in the drying phase. So you can paint straight away, or you can wait until it dries. And the way that you start off painting is that you are going to use your used tea bags, and you're just going to pat onto your sculpture, and you're just going to move it all round. My personal preference is to wait until they're dried, because now look, I'm moving it around, it's not stable, I risk breaking it, having it turn out terrible, so I let it dry to this level. And this one I didn't turn over, and can you see how flat it is on this side as opposed to this side? So that's just to show you an example of what your clay would look like if you don't turn it and keep turning it and keep moving it. Okay, so we've got our dry bone that I'm now going to show you painting on. And so you just basically are going to be dabbing into all of the areas. Try and cover as much as possible. You can leave some white areas. And I do, because we're working with tea, I actually do the whole bone at once. I don't wait for one side to dry. I work around it, work into these little areas, and just keep moving.